Welcome to our lesson on tree cookies. In a science called dendrochronology, which literally means the study of tree time, scientists have found that they can learn about past climates by studying the ring patterns of very old trees. Now look at the comic over on the right. As you can see, they're looking at this tree cookie. He says, "And see this thing right here, Jimmy? That's another time when the old fellow miraculously survived some big forest fire." Forest fires are one of the numerous events in a tree's life that we can spot inside a tree cookie. So let's look inside and find all kinds of cool things we can see in real tree cookies. By counting a tree's growth rings, you can tell its age. Every growth season, a tree adds a new layer of wood to its trunk. This layer is added just beneath the bark. Each ring has two parts. There is a wide, light part, which is the early wood, and a narrow, dark part, just one of these rings here. That is the late wood. The early wood grows during the wet growing season, which is in the spring and summer. During the transition from the drier summer to the fall and winter, growth slows and the late wood forms. The rings provide clues about the climate or weather of the area over time and evidence of disturbance to and around the tree, such as fires and floods. The shape and width of the annual rings often differ from year to year because of varying annual growth conditions. During a moist growing season, a tree in a temperate region may produce a particularly wide ring. We'll show this wide ring here. See how this is a larger ring? During a drought, a colder than average winter, or an unseasonable frost, a tree will produce a particularly narrow ring. Let's look for a narrow ring. Here are some narrow rings, closer to the end of this tree's life. In looking at this tree, we can see that there's all sorts of other stressors that have happened to this tree. You can see over on the right side of the tree that there was a branch that was torn off. That's what this section looks like here. We also see a branch coming up here at the top and a branch over here on the left. Another interesting thing that we see in this tree is the fact that it's cracked. Many of our tree cookies are actually cracked because the tree dries. When it is living, it is nice and moist and wet, and after we cut our tree down, it dries and cracks. Many factors besides weather can affect a tree's growth. Accordingly, tree rings reflect a tree's response to such stressors as root damage, disease, and competition from other plants. Sometimes a disturbance will occur after the growth season, producing a narrow or misshapen ring in the following year. Look at this tree cookie. There are many things noted in this cookie where we can see if there was damage or if there was good growth for that year. Starting with option A, the section that is marked A, they're pointing at this ring right here. This shows us that there was a torn branch. That torn branch was broken off right where we're pointing at the arrow. It did not tear off and take 4 years to tear off. It actually tore away at some of the cookie that was already formed. Just after this tree had its torn branch, the tree started to heal itself, and you will see the tree forming a scab. See how it comes in here for the next ring, and the second ring after that, it's healing itself over. Looking at the ring that is marked B, They're showing us that there is something bad that happened here. This could have been an insect attack, a drought, or an unseasonable frost. Ring C is showing this ring right here. This is a really wide ring. This tells us that this tree grew rapidly. This is called rapid growth for section marked C. The ring that is marked with letter D is also showing us a very, very small ring. This is the second year of the tree's life. That small ring could be anything similar to letter B, where it was an unseasonable frost, an insect attack, or a drought. And finally, letter E, this large black section here out of the ring is showing us that there was a fire that affected the tree. The fire affected at the second to last ring of the tree's life. It may have only been for a few minutes out of a day, but it burned away at part of the tree cookie that was already formed. Following the fire, the tree made it through, and the tree healed up with a scab. However, it died that following year, and that's when the tree was cut apart so we could look at this cookie. Let's start to draw a tree cookie using the timeline above. We see here that our tree was born in 2014. So that year that it was born, we'll draw a very small ring. There's 2014. There's nothing major that happened in 2015 or 2016. So we'll draw normal rings for 2015 and 2016. In 2017, there was a drought. That means we're going to draw a ring very close to the year before. There's our drought year for 2017. In 2018, there was a fire. You can draw a normal ring for a fire. After you draw your normal ring, you need to blacken in the area that was burned away by the fire. So color in all that area. It's going to look like it's been charred by the fire. Sometimes if the fire is bad enough, you'll see it over a few sides of the tree. Now if the fire is too bad, it would burn away your whole tree and you wouldn't have a cookie anymore. So now there's the section that was burned away by the fire. In 2019, there was rapid growth. We also have to remember that after our fire, we need to make a scab to heal up our fire. So we're going to start our ring where the fire was. And remember that we have rapid growth, so we have a really wide ring because our tree did really well that following year. There's nothing major in 2020, so we're going to draw a normal ring, but also remember that we still have our scab going on in the vicinity of the fire. 2021 has a torn branch. To show the torn branch, you're going to draw a normal ring, and after we draw the normal ring, we'll mark in where the torn branch was. So there is our normal ring for 2021. Now we're going to show that a branch was over on the right side of the tree. So we're going to blacken in a section here that would have been where the branch tore off at some of the flesh of the tree. Imagine that branch tearing off and taking away some of the tree that was already inside. It didn't take 3 years to tear away. It just tore off maybe in an afternoon. It could have been from a thunderstorm or from one of the storms we've had over the winter. So that shows 2021. There's nothing major in 2022, so we're going to draw a normal ring. Again, remembering that after our torn branch, we have a little scab. So let's draw a ring for 2022. With our scab, 2023 is the year that the tree died. It doesn't give us any major information, so we're going to draw another normal ring for 2023. And then you can draw your bark around the outside of the tree, because of course the tree always has bark there. One of the things that you need to keep in mind is as you're drawing your tree cookie, you don't know how large your tree is going to get until you've drawn all of the rings. Kind of like you don't know how large you're going to be when you turn 21, so you wouldn't buy clothes for yourself for your 21st birthday if you're only 10 years old. So that's why we start at the center of the tree's life and work our way outward. Let's refresh our memory and go back and point out the years of this tree's life. So here is 2014. Here's 2017, the drought. 2018 is the fire. 2019 shows the rapid growth. 2021 shows us our torn branch. And 2023 is the last year of this tree's life. The science of dendrochronology is very interesting. In fact, dendrochronologists actually meet with meteorologists to study weather patterns over time. In looking at the inside of a tree cookie, we can see if there were good years or if there were bad years. Looking at tree cookies from a forest, we could probably match up those good years and bad years of a tree's life. For example, in this cookie, we see that some of those rings closer to the center of the tree's life weren't very large. If we'd count back the years from when this tree fell, we could match it up with another tree from the same forest and also see that in those years, they most likely had the same incident happening to them. Scientists use this method to figure out what is going on in a forest in parts all over the world, especially where it's an area that doesn't have very much information about it. Another special thing about dendrochronology is we can only see these rings in trees where there are 4 seasons to our climate. When a tree grows all 4 seasons out of the year, you do not actually see a ring form. But here in Pennsylvania, we're lucky enough to see those rings form, which actually gives us a marker for each year. Some trees may have lived for well over 100 years, while other trees that we have in our class may have only been alive for 10 years. Now we're going to take time to look at tree cookies that are in our room and see if we can find some of those stressors. For example, rapid growth. Maybe we can see insect attack or a torn branch or maybe even a fire. I hope you enjoy the lesson.